Hi Dara, how are you?
I am doing wonderful. We are enjoying a beautiful park. They have
Yes.
horses, they have a community garden with vegetables and
Yep.
spices.
Very beautiful place, yeah. And nice weather too. So Dara, what do you want to discuss today?
It's a good question. Um, I was hoping to talk about ego and how that might result as a part of your self-improvement journey. What does a self-improvement journey look like, and other negative effects of that as well?
Okay, sure. So let's contemplate on self-improvement as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are many negative traits that can happen when one is improving as well. The problem with the negative traits is often as a result of not being in the know of what they are doing as part of their journey. Now, some of the common traits that we see when it comes to self improvement are ego, a show off behavior.
Mm-hmm.
All these negative traits that I mentioned just now are a result of misguided self improvement, not the right self improvement. Now, let's discuss about like what is a misguided self improvement in first place. So, anything that we do in general has to be towards a greater and purer purpose. That's what we mentioned in our past podcast, right?
Yeah.
If it is geared towards a greater and purer purpose, it will be welcomed by everyone. If it is self serving in nature, then it is most likely going to be punished by others. Now we know when one has self improvement towards making oneself better,
Mm-hmm.
and if that is the ultimate goal, let's say, then one develops a nature of feeling more privileged than others.
Mm-hmm.
And they will end up treating others badly, right?
Yeah, because they're focused on improving themselves for themselves.
Exactly. It sounds really well. They're focused on improving themselves for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when one goes through that process, focusing on improving themselves, they often do right things to improve themselves. When doing the right thing, they feel the need of explaining those to others.
Yeah.
And also, they feel a need of fixing others as well. Because we are by design designed towards ensuring everything is right around us. But the purpose for such person, if it is misguided towards serving themselves, then it could result in a bad behavior because someone might be expressing themselves, see what I'm doing this right. I want you to follow that. This is the way of speech. And you know what that kind of speech will result in? Will result in hatred from others,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And jealousy, possibly.
Yeah, if the other person is misguided, then it could result in jealousy to that person. But for this person, it could also result in jealousy because if his purpose is towards serving himself or herself, if they see someone else doing it better than themselves,
Yeah.
then they have a feeling that they're not doing it the right, and it could result in jealousy too.
Yeah.
Now, how can one avoid these kind of problems? We also spoke about show off. When it comes to the show off, if one sets himself towards a higher expectation, aspiring to be something, one often tends to act in that fashion too, that he is already the best and he will take every decision in that fashion.
Mm-hmm.
He will work towards everything in that fashion.
Yeah.
If he loses his awareness that he is aspiring, then he might treat others bad, show off things that he is aspiring to be, but not at,
Mm-hmm.
which could result in negative effects, karmic effects from others.
Yeah.
That's the show off behavior that will be in the know that you are aspiring for something, you're not at there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last one we spoke about is losing confidence.
Mm-hmm.
When one goes through a process of self improvement in the right way, by the way, he has to observe everything from a third person perspective. And when he observes from third person perspective and treat himself as a separate person, then he will know all the rights and wrongs that person is doing. And when you look at from that perspective, you often feel aversion towards yourself too. because you will realize all the wrongs that you are doing.
Yeah.
So this could result in loss of confidence, but be confident you are going through the right approach in first place, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. The realization is the first step. Once you realize what you are doing wrong, that means you're going to fix it too. Your path is going to be on the positive cycle very soon. Be happy about it. You're going to rebuild yourself from the bottom up. Yeah. So these are the different traits of negative traits of self improvement. And what can one do towards fixing this? Is the question, right?
Yeah.
So one can use this third person perspective and make that perspective the purest and observe everything from that point of view, and designing themselves towards that perspective will help one overcome these things. Let's talk about, like, in general terms, how can one apply these things in day-to-day life, right? Like, I know everything sounds great in theory, but what does it look like in actual implementation? So we spoke about the negative traits, mainly the ego, show off, and other traits. What can one do to avoid ego in first place?
Reduce the importance of I
Yeah.
and separate yourself from whatever you are trying to improve.
So, to your point, right, like reducing the importance of I. How can one reduce the importance of I?
You could stop using the word
To stop using the word
or reduce it.
I, or use in the in the way that is the purest possible. What is the purest way of using I? Who are you? Who are your true self?
The world, everything. So you could replace it with that.
Yeah, your true self is the higher self, the one that exists in everything. If you treat everything from that point of view, and if you start your journey of self improvement towards that, then your purpose will not be misguided. You will not be focusing towards working for yourself. It's working for higher purpose, right? Like, such purpose will be appreciated by everyone. And if you want to fix someone, right for right and wrong for wrong, if you use that third person perspective and observe everything from that perspective, it will help you in terms of constructively structuring your speech too towards fixing that problem. Rather than saying, I'm doing this, you should do this, you will be constructively speaking in a fashion where you can explain the consequences of things for the society as a whole, what could possibly happen, and such explanation will be welcomed by others, right? So that can help avoid ego, and also being in the know and looking at you from third person perspective, that you are aspiring to the best version of yourself, understanding the fact that you are not there yet, but you are feeling that you are there yet, and working for everything towards that will help you limit your show off behavior, will help you focus on the right things, because the problem with show off behavior is it fills with oneself with a lot of ignorance too. So, in a sense, right, like using a third person perspective with pure intentions, working towards a higher purpose will help one overcome these problems
Yeah.
that arise as part of self improvement.
And the other thing that you mentioned was when you're creating this third person perspective, you're separating yourself, right? When you're separating yourself, you're able to look at everything more objectively because you can see what attachments you have and you can then objectively decide what is best for achieving that purpose, what is right for achieving that purpose.
Yeah. So when you start using this third person perspective and watch everything objectively, it improves one in an exponential way. Because one, he who can separate himself from the illusion of this body and this person will be able to do greater things for the entire society.
Yeah.
Because any attachment, even attachment to self, is also limiting one to get to the highest potential. And this subjective nature will also enable one excel in many fields. If we see all the creative fields, the best level of creativity comes when one feels that he is that itself or she is that itself. Be it an artist, be it a movie director, be it anything for that matter. If you feel you are that and you can express that in the most beautiful way, then you are the most successful artist, right?
Yeah.
So separating oneself from that, using the third person perspective and thinking in an objective manner will purify one from this point of view and will accelerate one's development from this point of view.
So some of the tools that we just gave were third person perspective and also only using I when you can apply it to the whole world.
Yes. I want to give a quick reasoning in terms of why we want to use I when you apply that to the world. If you have to use the word I, if you use it from a pure perspective, it will be respected by others and you will not run into any negative karmic effects. Now, what is the purest perspective of I? The purest perspective of I, as per all religions, is treating everything as thyself, also known as Vasudeva Kutumbikam from Hindu Vedic philosophies and from biblical religions and other religions, treating your neighbor as thyself, as yourself. If you approach everything in life from that point of view, it will be respected by others. And that's the way of God as per religions. But you can treat this as a way of science too, because it works very well when you are dealing with others in terms of feelings.
As an exchange.
Exactly. Yeah. So what you express is what you attract. When you express yourself as I, as in the bigger self, and people are often attracted to that bigger self, that means they are naturally attracted to you and your words as well, because they are inspiring them and they speak about truth for truth.
Yeah.
When one has self importance, which is the misguided I, then they cannot do justice in any speech that they have. Let's say if you are discussing or having a conversation with a person who has too much self importance, all the conversations you can notice will always be revolving around them, their problem, how they're working towards, or their achievement, what they did for that, everything around that topic. And if you see some people, the topic never goes out of that as well. And it becomes very heavy after some time. You want to leave or jump from whatever you can. Right?
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about where it comes from, what it is, how to reduce your ego. Is there anything else that you want to touch on within this topic of self improvement?
So, be it self improvement or be it anything that one does in life, taking the perspective of analyzing everything from a purpose point of view and finding that higher purpose has to be the starting step. Then you work your way backwards further. That would be my advice for anyone.
Yeah. This applies to everything, which is why we've mentioned the third person perspective so many times during
Yes.
these podcast episodes. I think that was a good ending.
Yeah. Thank you, Dara. Thanks for the podcast.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Krishna.